Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 4 of Concentration Check. I'm Wyatt,
And I'm Tony.
and we're here to take you through yet another one of our blunders into the Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop world. I think today we're discussing styles of playing.
Yeah, I think our first one that we were talking about earlier was mid maxers
Yeah,
and how they fall into this whole equation of D and D.
yeah, I feel like everyone min maxes, just to one extent or degree. No one wants to have a weak character unless you're trying to make a joke character. Also, for those listening, please excuse me because I'm currently battling a cold right now. So I try not to hog too much of the microphone like I usually do. But yeah, everyone generally likes to have a powerful character in retrospect, but if it's to the point where you're playing a barbarian and you're just going to dump his strength, charisma, and everything else to do a point buy system so you can have the perfect barbarian, I mean, that kind of takes away from the whole central thing, what do you think?
Uh, kind of, I agree. Min maxers kind of do take away a element of D and D. The whole threat aspect tends to just go out the window after a certain point of mid maxing, where you have just the campaign tailored around one player, and God forbid that player does not come to the session because the rest of the party, if they had not mid maxed or are not even tanky, it's going to be a bad time for everyone else. They're just going to drop like flies around them.
That's where you just attach him to a stick and use him as a meat shield for the entire encounter.
And that's generally what happens. And then falls on the DM to just be very creative on how he approaches or she approaches the encounter.
I think I've never seen terror on a player's face until he had a min maxed wizard and I cast silence on him. Just kind of get creative. It's not about trying to neutralize his threat to your campaign entirely, but it is certainly about making the consequences as real for him as it is as real for everyone else. You know? And what happens when you piss off a min maxer? You get the angry player. You get the person that says, well, fuck the DM, fuck your campaign. I'm just going to sit here and stew, and maybe I'll even talk shit about you in our group chat. And you know what? I mean, I can deal with an angry player because usually, depending on who they are, they'll always come back next week with a fresh state of mind, or we'll talk to them offline and say, like, hey, man, this is why I did this, or this is why I did that. I understand that you're angry because I didn't let you have your perfect anime hero moment, but, you got to think about the rest of the party.
And being an angry player kind of stems from people wanting that glory only to themselves, and it's kind of very selfish. And if you find yourself getting upset at the table, just say, "Can we take a small break?" or try to get yourself out of that mindset as a player. This is what I want, and think of more of, okay, what's being presented in front of me, and how can I make this an enjoyable experience for everyone? And that's how I kind of approach it, especially if you feel like you're being targeted sometimes. Sometimes it's a little difficult when you min max and you feel you're being kind of targeted by the DM in a way, but at the same time, you have to understand that you're kind of making him target you by min maxing. Maybe min max your character, but don't push it all the way every time you come to the table.
I think that we certainly have different pet peeves when it comes to making us angry players. Like, I have a pet peeve where when people don't know what they want to do when it comes to their turn. If we have four or five people sitting around and you're waiting, but you're there on your phone or you're looking around or you're getting food or whatever, one or two times that's fine. But if it's every single turn and it's making combat take hours because one person can't pay attention, that definitely ticks me off.
That definitely gets me going too. There's nothing that distracts from the encounter than your player taking his turn and then the person who follows it goes, hold on, I have no idea what I'm going to do right now.
Right. And, sometimes it's warranted because they need a moment to step back and grasp the situation. But definitely when that they're just chilling and not really caring about, the story that you put together, the encounter you set forth, that kind of takes me back as a DM. It makes me ask myself, well, am I not good enough for you? Am I not like am I not engaging you enough? And you get some people there that will definitely make you both an angry player and an angry DM. Two of these are the video game player and the ever-present murder hobo. I think we should talk about the video game player first because I mean we're both avid video game players. I mean we always stream after we put out one of these shows, but we do realize that there's a disconnect, and the reason that we wrote this person in is because these people have either played too much Dark Souls or Skyrim or Dragon Age, and they view D&D in a way that's non-conducive to the tabletop environment.
And don't get me wrong with this. I do like video game players in D&D. It's just a different kind of animal. And if you're running your campaign more of a video game, then you do want those video game players who are going to go in there and mid max, and as long as everyone is there and understands that, hey, you're just gonna go around beating things up the entire time, and there's really not too much story around it, then that's when it's okay to kind of be that video game player just charging in, but don't go too recklessly in it.
Now, what is it when we say video game player? What do we mean? Because I personally mean the person that doesn't really care about the story, doesn't really care about the NPCs. I want to kill things, I want to loot things, I want to steal stuff. That's it.
I kind of have like two ideas of between video game players. You have the ones that uh, play games like Baldur's Gate, and I think another one's Kingsmaker is another game that's out there. And then they come to the tabletop game and kind of expect it to be like that. And they feel like, oh, I have all these options. And then they kind of get overwhelmed with the options and end up nearly killing every player because they're like, well, I wish I could always just threaten people. And then you get into the situation where you threaten the wrong person. And now everyone's in a bar and about to die.
Are you looking at me because that's exactly what almost happened?
Yeah, that has actually almost happened.
Do you want to explain that story? Or do you want me to?
I guess I can get into it. I gotta roll my sleeves up for this one. So, just like every classic start, your party walks into a bar. You see your contact that you're supposed to meet. They're a spy for the king that's inside the Thieves Guild. And you walk up to him and say, so I know you're a spy for the king, and you expect that to go over well with the spy trying to keep their cover amongst their friends. Now, mind you, she's playing a card game, and maybe you can go, hey, deal me a hand, and then talk to him like, hey, I would like to do some business. around here. Would you know anyone who I can talk to about business?
But that's not how it went. How
That's
it went was the former, and the entire party was level 1, and almost got TPK'd no less than 2 hours into the first session.
and that's how that goes. What do? You just sit at a table and pretend you're not a part of the entire group.
Well,
I'm talking personally in that aspect.
I will take a video game player because a video game player you can at least teach if they want, if they genuinely like to play, if they genuinely want to be a part of the group, be a part of the story, and continue playing the D&D. I will take them over any day over the ladder, which is the murder hobo. Everyone knows what these people are, just traveling from town to town. Sometimes it's just one person, at which point PvP is definitely an option to solve that problem. Sometimes it's an entire group, and then the DM just says, hey, I guess screw it, we're doing a murder hobo campaign. Or, if you want to be a DM that takes the higher road, you can have certain things like bounties put in place, jail time, whatever kind of strikes your fancy. But I definitely don't like murder hobos because they are non-conducive to my style of play.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. The murder hobo scene is a wonderful place to not ever be because you just don't have anything to do besides kill people. And once you start killing people and everyone hates you, what does the DM have to give you? It's like everyone hates you. What are the assassins gonna hire you? I don't think so. They don't want people to be just murdering everyone. That's not good for business. You have to have someone to get money from, and you probably were killing everyone and their mothers, and not even for any money. And as players, it kind of just gets boring after a while.
Yeah, definitely with that style of play, it's always great to have combat encounters. Some people want them more than normal. Some people want none at all. But if you're just constantly going around and that's your whole deal is just I'm going to kill anything that moves, that's definitely going to bore both the person that's crafting the campaign for you and the players around you that are going to play in it. So murder hobo is definitely a thing that I want to avoid. But there are certain other types of things that are not necessarily bad, but it kind of tests your, not necessarily your resolve, but your experience as a dungeon master. And that would be the pacifist and the introvert. Now, these two are very different in each other. The pacifist is just someone who wants to explore the narrative of the campaign. They're not really one to care to roll initiative or really kind of get their hands dirty in terms of blood and gore. And I think that would be someone who I would actually love to have in my campaign. For you, on the other hand, it could be a little bit frustrating. But as a DM, you actually have to take the time to step aside and say, okay, these persons, they're either not experienced with fighting, they don't like to fight, or they just don't like that whole aspect of D&D in itself. So I need to craft for them a specific section in order to facilitate their need.
And the pacifist could also be the negotiator for the party most of the time, talk them out of fights. And I think the pacifist would best suit a hobo campaign because they would be that sound mind that goes, hey, guys, let's back up a little bit. Let's stop killing everyone.
They would definitely be the first people to die.
And yeah.
I have, without a shadow of a doubt. But The pacifist, you can always talk to him. It's like, why don't you play a more charismatic character, like a bard or a warlock, or yeah, bard or a warlock,
Or even a paladin.
or a paladin.
It's definitely not going to have too many murder hobos with a paladin around.
Well, unless you have a fallen paladin.
Well, okay, you can have the fallen paladin, but
Um,
maybe their whole band of the clergy that he's part of, or whatever it's called,
yeah.
comes after them because they betrayed the oath.
Well, we're not here to constantly give you ideas. That's not what this is about. It's about helping them, Tony. But back on track. The pacifist is definitely someone that kind of boosts your creativity in a way. The introvert, on the other hand, is someone who I think boosts your social fiber as a person. They want to play D&D. They're just not good around people, or they don't like being around people. So you kind of gotta help nurture them. Now, I'm not saying that being an introvert is bad. I personally hate people. I wouldn't say that I'm an introvert, but I don't like being around large groups.
And I think having introvert also makes it, you kind of have to make a comfortable place for the person to be around, and for them to actually open up in the social setting and have an input. You, as, say, if you're the DM, you'd want to engage the person, but don't overly engage the person at the same time. You want to find a healthy balance and talk to that person, have them say I instead of my player, and you kind of make it feel okay to play, because at the end of the day, if they're not having fun, if they're just there just quiet, maybe they are having fun, but you want them to be a part of something.
Don't try to, I guess, overcorrect. Like, don't try to make them feel super important. Like, don't always be trying to make eye contact every time you say something to them. Just make it feel like a normal part of the conversation, but always keep that in the back of your mind. Like, you just need to kind of inch this person closer to becoming involved. And, at the end of the day, they'll still be a quote unquote introvert, but they'll still have that close group of people that they play with.
And they might even open up and bring a lot to the story. You just don't know after that. But to kind of move on to the next part, you have the worst kind of category, the classic neckbeard, and you have the veteran players.
So I've said it once, and I'll say it again. Most of the problems I've encountered in D&D have never been from new people. They've always been from people that have been playing for 10 plus years, have read the core rulebook front to back, and at the end of the day, they're purists. They always say like, "Oh, I remember it was better in 3.5. You could do this, you could do that," or "Yeah, no homebrew, no homebrew. We're going by core rulebook rules only." Fuck those guys or gals. We're being sensitive here. I don't like them. I don't like veterans. I don't like vets that are snarky and are just so much holier than thou. Like, they look down upon you and everything else. If you're a veteran, if you love D&D, that's great. But you got to understand that the whole reason this keeps going is because of friendly people who involve their friends and family members in, or talk to strangers, or talk to whoever else, and they bring these people in so they can experience it and experience D&D. It's not bad that they don't experience it the same way you did, where it was back in the 80s, everyone's sitting around a basement with hoods over their heads while they listen to Grateful Dead on a 45. it's not it's not good to always be that person to say, I remember back in, second edition or 3.5 edition. Let them experience the here and now, you know?
Yeah, stop worrying about what edition you're playing and just start worrying about having a great time with everyone and enjoying the experience. It doesn't matter if you're playing 5e, 4, 4.5, 3.
Four.
Sorry.
There's no 4.
Sorry, bad. 4 or 3.5. It's all about the experience of the game and just enjoying your time with a bunch of friends, family, and even new people if that's what when you run into them and they decide to play for the first time.
As long as they're not enjoying playing with a neckbeard, I'm fine. I am crusading against neckbeards. It's almost 2020. Let the crusade begin. Everyone has seen the memes. People probably know a person. In high school, I was said person.
And it's not that we're saying the fashion style of neckbeard. That's a whole other thing in itself.
That's just a hygiene issue. No, we're talking about the person that pulls up, sits down, has an anime waifu t-shirt on, smells like he hasn't showered in days, face is so greasy you could probably fry a McDonald's hamburger on his face.
And that's kind of the thing. Don't be a neckbeard in the sense of you're coming to the game to have to live your fantasies out. Leave that back at your home.
Leave that for like a 4chan forum. Don't bring it out around a bunch of people, some of whom have kids, some of whom are sensitive to the topic of sexual harassment and groping like any other standard normal human being. You alright, man?
Yeah.
Just having a flashback?
I actually never had a neckbeard experience, but I've read a lot on Reddit from neckbeards and listened to some YouTube channels where the experience is terrible. Also, neckbeards also tend to be bullies, which is another thing. They like to bully people into their fantasy realm, and that's not cool at all to do.
At the end of the day, when we've listed off all these styles of playing, you're gonna fall into some of these categories, whether you want to believe it or not. Everyone has min-maxed. Everyone has played angry. Everyone, has been a murder hobo or a pacifist or even joined as an introvert. And some people have even played for years, becoming vets themselves, and have discovered a kind of pseudo space where they fit in, where they continue the legacy of Dungeons and Dragons for time immemorial. But just at the end of the day, don't worry about what you fall into. Just worry about the game at hand and keep those dice rolls high, folks. Thank you for joining us again. I'm Wyatt.
And I'm Tony.
And this has been episode 4 of Concentration Check. Please follow us on social media and also come to check out some of our after video streams on Twitch. Have a good one, folks.